Hi and welcome, I'm Andy Miocha and you are watching A News. Here are the headlines. Hamas suspends Gaza hostage releases until further notice, citing Israeli violations of the ceasefire. Tel Aviv in turn accuses Hamas of violating the deal. AI Action Summit kicks off in Paris. Leaders and tech executives talk governance, competition and security. EU and Baltic leaders mark the region's switch from Russia's electricity grid to the EU's system. Thank you for tuning in. Hamas has announced it's delaying the release of Israeli hostages until further notice. The group says it's a response to Israel breaching the Gaza ceasefire agreement, which came into effect on January 19th. Hamas claims Israel delayed the return of displaced Gazans to the Strip's north and also obstructed the flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz reacted by accusing Hamas of violating the ceasefire deal and said that he had instructed the military to prepare at the highest level of readiness. 3 Israeli hostages were due to be released on Saturday in exchange for the release of a number of Palestinian prisoners jailed in Israel. Top U.S. officials of Donald Trump's administration will have their first face-to-face meeting with their European counterparts this week. At gatherings in Paris, Brussels and Munich, they'll talk trade and defense. Our Ubay Shabander brings more on that from Washington.
Senior members of President Trump's cabinet are heading to Europe this week, where they will hold their first face-to-face meetings with European Union leadership. Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth are heading across the pond, where tech regulation, trade deals, military spending, and the Ukraine war will top the agenda. European leaders are reportedly keen to reassure their American counterparts that they are on the same page when it comes to hot-button issues such as trade and defense. The high-level meetings will take place at an artificial intelligence summit in Paris, NATO leadership meetings in Brussels, and at the annual Munich Security Conference in Germany. The trajectory of the Ukraine war and Washington's desire for NATO member states to take on a greater degree of burden sharing when it comes to military spending on the European continent will be key priorities for the Americans. President Trump has previously said that he has started talks with the Russians about reaching a resolution to the Ukraine conflict, and Trump has been highly critical of European leaders for what he views to be their lack of resolve when it comes to military spending. Recently, President Trump has lambasted European leaders for pursuing trade policies that he says are deeply unfair to the United States. President Trump said on Sunday that he plans on imposing tariffs on steel and aluminum imports and reciprocal tariffs for all U.S. imports, a move that could impact European metal producers and car manufacturers. $132 billion, that is the amount of the trade deficit between the U.S. and the EU currently. The White House wants to see the EU to act on promises to bridge that trade gap and to lessen taxes on American tech companies operating in Europe. Otherwise, President Trump says he is ready to impose hefty financial pain on European exports. I'm Ubay Shabander reporting for A News in Washington, D.C.
The AI Action Summit kicked off in Paris, attracting world leaders, top tech executives and policymakers to discuss artificial intelligence's impact on global security, economics and governance.
Paris is hosting nearly 100 nations as world leaders, tech giants and researchers gather to shape the future of artificial intelligence. The AI Action Summit, opening at the Grand Palais, is set to address regulation, economic disruption, and AI's role in global power dynamics. France, pushing to define a European AI model, has pledged 109 billion euros toward AI development, emphasizing open-source alternatives and energy-efficient computing. Meanwhile, China's DeepSeek, which recently challenged US tech dominance with a cost-effective AI model, has intensified debates over AI sovereignty. The US approach remains uncertain. Since taking office, President Donald Trump has revoked Biden-era AI policies and faces calls to tighten export controls on AI chips. With American tech firms investing billions, Washington must decide whether to align with global regulations or push for deregulation. Tech leaders, including Alphabet and Microsoft, will discuss investment, AI security, and expanding AI access to developing nations. A $2.5 billion global AI fund is under negotiation, aiming to bridge the gap between major powers and smaller economies. At its core, the summit asks who will control AI: governments, corporations, or the world at large. The outcome will shape the global AI landscape for years to come.
Donald Trump said that he will announce 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports into the United States. Speaking aboard Air Force One, Trump said he would also announce reciprocal tariffs on Tuesday or Wednesday, which he said will go into effect immediately. During his first term, Trump imposed tariffs of 25% on steel and 10% on aluminum, but later granted several trading partners exemptions, including Canada, Mexico, and Brazil. Former President Joe Biden later negotiated duty-free arrangements with the European Union, Britain, and Japan. The U.S. remains a major steel importer, with Canada accounting for 79% of U.S. aluminum imports, while Mexico remains a key source of aluminum scrap and alloy. China's counter-tariffs to U.S. goods have come into effect following Donald Trump's imposition of levies on Chinese goods. Traders in China's export manufacturing hub of Yiwu shrugged off Trump's tariffs, with some saying that they had already made preparations.
The city of Yiwu is China's major export hub for small goods, and traders there say businesses will continue despite concerns over rising U.S. tariffs. Businessmen such as Ren Hao of Jingxi Toys believe profit margins and pricing flexibility will help offset the impact. He says tariff increases won't significantly affect his business, as buyers would absorb some of the costs.
Adding a 50% will not impact us much. First of all, our product is a high-profit product. For example, if I sell it here for 5 yuan, the wholesalers may give consumers a price of 15 or 20 yuan, because this is standard pricing in the US. Even if a tariff adds 2.5 yuan to 5 yuan a toy, the impact on the end consumer isn't too significant. Additionally, they now have a reason to increase prices for their customers, and they will also try to negotiate with us. For instance, they might say, our tariffs increased, can you cover some of the cost for us? And we would agree. After all, they are long-term clients, so we would support them to some extent. The US accounts for about 80% of our exports.
Cheng Haodong, chairman of Bezier Group, says his company has adjusted operations already, having anticipated stricter U.S. trade policies. His business was using the de minimis trade loophole, which saw smaller packages being sent through platforms such as Temu and Shein. However, this process has been revoked.
We gathered information from various reports, as well as on platforms like Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Based on that, we made strategic adjustments for the company in advance. It's not about reacting immediately when a policy is announced. By then, it would be too late to adapt.
As trade tensions escalate, businesses on both sides are adjusting to a rapidly changing economic landscape.
Oil prices rose despite concerns over a possible global trade war after Donald Trump's newly announced tariffs on steel and aluminum. Brent crude increased by 1.2%, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude gained 1.3%. The rise may be due to bargain hunting after 3 weeks of declines driven by trade war fears. Despite ongoing tariff uncertainty, the oil market seems to be brushing off the immediate impact for now, as some analysts suggest that the tariffs' effects may not be as significant as initially feared. In New York, protests broke out against Donald Trump's immigration policies, with demonstrators calling for an end to mass deportations.
Protests unfolded in New York City's Times Square, with demonstrators voicing their opposition to the administration's immigration policies and ongoing mass deportations. Holding signs and chanting slogans, they demanded more inclusive immigration reforms. Many of the protesters carried Palestinian flags, showing solidarity with the people of Gaza in response to President Donald Trump's recent controversial remarks. During a press conference last week, Trump suggested that the US might take over the Gaza Strip and resettle its population elsewhere, triggering widespread reactions. Speaking alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he proposed relocating Palestinians to neighbouring Arab countries like Egypt and Jordan. This suggestion, which Trump has reiterated in recent weeks, has been firmly rejected by Palestinian leaders, as well as Arab nations in the region. On Sunday, Trump once again expressed his commitment to buying and owning Gaza and suggested that other Middle Eastern countries could help rebuild sections of the region.
I'm committed to buying and owning Gaza. As far as us rebuilding it, we may give it to other states in the Middle East to build sections of it. Other people may do it through our auspices, but we're committed to owning it, taking it, and making sure that Hamas doesn't move back. There's nothing to move back into. The place is a demolition site. It'll be, the remainder will be demolished. Everything's demolished. I mean, you can't live in those buildings right now. They're very unsafe. But we'll make it into a very good site for future development by somebody. We'll let other countries develop parts of it. It'll be beautiful.
The international response has been swift and largely negative. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan called the proposal unacceptable, rejecting the idea of displacing Gaza's population. Saudi Arabia, a key US ally, also rejected the plan outright, stating that it would not normalise relations with Israel without the establishment of a Palestinian state. Countries such as China, Germany, Russia, France and the UK have expressed concern, reaffirming their support for a two-state solution and condemning Trump's remarks as a violation of international law.
Thousands of Afghans who helped the US during its lengthy war in Afghanistan remain stranded as Trump's decision to halt resettlement programs leaves them in uncertainty. Our Tamim Bahiz brings more on that from Kabul.
Afghans who assisted the US in its fight against the Taliban remain in limbo after President Donald Trump decided to terminate programs designed to bring them to safety in America. Reports indicate that more than 15,000 Afghans had already been approved for travel before the pause was implemented. The Afghans who assisted the US in its longest war came from various backgrounds, including drivers, translators, military and intelligence personnel, journalists, as well as women leaders and activists. In August 2021, as the US carried out its evacuation from Kabul, American military aircraft transported tens of thousands of Afghans from the city's main airports. However, countless others were left behind. Several programs were created to help Afghans emigrate to the US, depending on their role in supporting the US-led mission in Afghanistan. Many Afghans still stranded in countries like Pakistan, Albania, and Qatar, and some even within Afghanistan had been waiting for transfer to the US. Shocked by the setbacks, many veterans who assisted the Afghans in finding refuge in the US remain hopeful that they will receive special consideration. Tamim Bahiz, A News, Kabul, Afghanistan.
Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian said he questions the United States' sincerity in seeking negotiations with Tehran while imposing sanctions. Pezeshkian's comments come after Trump restored his maximum pressure campaign against Iran last week. The measures seek to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons and enable the U.S. to block Iran's oil supplies to other states. Speaking at the 46th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution rally, Pezeshkian also rejected U.S. accusations of Iran destabilizing the Middle East, blaming Israel instead. Romanian President Klaus Iohannis resigned in a move he said was to prevent the country from entering a crisis that would ensue as the parliament was expected to vote for his impeachment. In office since 2014, Iohannis has already served a maximum of 2 5-year terms. However, his presidency was extended after the Constitutional Court in December cancelled the results of the presidential race in which controversial ultra-nationalist Calin Georgescu unexpectedly won the first round. Georgescu's win was marred by allegations of Russian interference and electoral violations. Following the president's resignation, the Senate chief will become interim president of Romania. The Baltic states of Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania completed a switch from Russia's electricity grid to the EU's system, severing Soviet-era ties amid heightened security after the suspected sabotage of several subsea cables and pipelines.
Goodbye Russia, goodbye Lenin. We made it.
Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania have synchronized their electricity systems with the European continental power grid. This move marked an end for a long-planned transition to enhance energy security and reduce reliance on Russia.
Today, history is...
Moments ago, I received great news. The synchronization of the Baltic states' electricity system with the continental European system has been successfully completed. This is a historic moment, marking the end of a long journey for Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia.
The transition is a major step in the Baltic states' integration with the European Union, ending one of their last energy ties to the former Soviet Union. On February the 8th, they disconnected from the IPC-UPC network, a power system set up by the Soviet Union in the 1950s and now run by Russia. Following this, cross-border high-voltage transmission lines in eastern Latvia near the Russian border were physically cut. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen celebrated the achievement at a ceremony in Vilnius. During the historic event, von der Leyen and the presidents of Latvia, Lithuania and Poland symbolically activated the connection between the Baltic states and the EU's power grid, marking the completion of the long-planned transition.
Today is a day to celebrate, because this is about more than energy. It is about European integration. It is about European sovereignty. It is about proving once again that when we come together, we can move mountains. Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, you are at the heart of Europe. You work tirelessly for this moment. And today, all of Europe celebrates with you.
The successful synchronization represents a major milestone in the Baltic nations' pursuit of energy independence. It reinforces their commitment to European integration, while also reduces vulnerability to external energy pressures.
Over in Brussels, subcontractor workers at Audi gathered demanding labor reforms. They say they are being left out of severance benefits as the plant prepares to shut down.
Around 100 workers gathered in Brussels calling for changes, demanding social protection for subcontractors and an expansion of laws protecting workers from layoffs. They argue that the current rules exclude them from Audi's severance package, even though they worked alongside Audi employees. Audi Brussels, which employs nearly 3,000 people, will stop production by the end of February. After negotiations, direct Audi employees secured a severance deal with bonuses based on years of service. But subcontractor workers from companies like Imperial Logistics and Renus Automotive say they will receive little to nothing. Under current law, Audi is not responsible for subcontractor employees during layoffs. Protesters are urging the government to change this, ensuring that main contractors also take responsibility for all workers affected by closures. With the factory shutdown approaching, workers say time is running out for fair treatment.
A set of new laws surrounding media funding and public assembly in Georgia following the Foreign Agents Bill is causing concern for the civic society and opposition. The government, however, says the measures are being taken to ensure accountability and align the country with international standards. Nina Nikolaishvili reports from Tbilisi.
Georgia is navigating a politically charged environment as its parliament moves forward with legislative changes on public assemblies, foreign agents transparency and media regulations. The government argues these measures aim to enhance transparency, ensure public order and to align with international standards. However, critics express concerns that these decisions may have unintended consequences on democratic freedom and Georgia's ties with its Western allies. A key point of contention is a foreign agent transparency law, which will require NGOs and media organizations receiving over 20% of their funding abroad to register as a foreign agent. Modeled after the US Foreign Agent Registration Act, the government maintains that this law will increase accountability in the non-profit and media sectors. Notably, a similar proposal last year led to a mass protest and was ultimately withdrawn. The proposal media law has also drawn significant attention. While the government claims that the law is inspired by British standards and aims to increase financial transparency and accountability, opponents worry that this may expand state control over the press. Amendments on the law on public assemblies and demonstrations are equally contentious too. The government assessed that the stricter rules are necessary to maintain public order and comply with global norms. However, some civil society organizations warn that these laws may undermine Georgia's democratic progress and its bid for EU membership. The European Union has also voiced its concern, urging the government to engage in dialogue with civil society. Georgia is at a pivotal moment with its government emphasizing reforms and stability, while the opposition groups cautions against moves that may deepen division within societies. I'm Nina Nikolaishvili reporting from Tbilisi, News.
In environment news, the Aral Sea is showing signs of recovery with rising water levels, while the water loss in the Caspian Sea is raising regional concerns. Experts warn of a possible ecological disaster. Our Fariza Kalimurzina has more on that.
The Aral Sea, located on the border of Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, continues to show signs of revival. According to Kazakhstan's Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, for the last 4 months, the northern Aral Sea received 1 billion cubic meters of water, which is 100 million cubic meters more than originally planned. In accordance with the agreement signed with the Central Asian countries, a total of 1.6 billion cubic meters of water will be supplied to the North Aral Sea by March 2025. Currently, the volume of water in the sea stands at 22.1 billion cubic meters, with expectations to reach 23.4 billion by the end of the year. As a result, the water salinity level has decreased and the populations of 22 fish species have been restored. Annual fishery volumes have reached 8,000 tons. Additionally, 4.4 million seedlings have been planted in the dried-up regions of the Greater Aral Sea as part of ongoing reclamation efforts. Kazakhstan now leads the International Fund for Saving the Aral Sea. with its leadership in the organization set to continue for the next 3 years. Meanwhile, environmentalists warn that after the loss of the Aral Sea, the world cannot afford to accept the same fate for the Caspian Sea. New data shows that its water levels are dropping rapidly. In Kazakhstan, the coastline has retreated by as much as 18 kilometers in certain areas, with the water level decreasing at an average rate of 70 centimeters per year. Satellite data reveals a concerning 7% decrease in the Kazakh sector of the Caspian Sea over the past 15 years. The Caspian Sea, the largest enclosed body of water in the world, is crucial for over 270 million people living in Kazakhstan, Russia, Turkmenistan, Iran, and Azerbaijan. Kazakhstan, already a water-deficient country with only 2.8% of its land covered by water, faces significant challenges. 2/3 of the country's territory is arid with limited access to water resources. Additionally, a large portion of Kazakhstan's water resources depends on neighboring countries. As the Caspian Sea continues to shrink, experts emphasize the urgent need for cooperative regional solutions to safeguard this vital water source and prevent an environmental crisis similar to the Aral Sea disaster. From Kazakhstan, Fariza Kalimurzana, A News.
Over in Italy, Rome's Balloon Museum is hosting an exhibition of 20 interactive artworks by renowned international contemporary artists who explored the theme of air between wonder and fun. The exhibition will be open until the end of March.
A mesmerizing new exhibition has arrived at Rome's Balloon Museum, where visitors are immersed in a world of art, movement, and light. The exhibit showcases a series of interactive installations where vibrant balloons float through the air, giant spheres roll freely, and sculptures glow in unexpected ways. The museum's space has been completely transformed, allowing visitors of all ages to explore and engage with the artwork in an interactive and playful environment.
The best thing, in my opinion, is that the exhibition appeals to both children and adults. It's something that everyone can enjoy. And more than just play, it's also culture. Even children who might initially see it as just a fun experience can begin to understand the beauty of art and culture.
One highlight includes a house-shaped installation filled with floating balloons, while others dive into a sea of white or swing beneath illuminated sculptures.
We try to find artistic and creative experiences where we can move around the space and interact with the exhibits. We really enjoyed it and had so much fun in the ball pit, sinking and being completely immersed in a sea of balls. The San Lorenzo installation was also amazing, with lights descending from above and a platform surrounded by swings so you can move around freely. There is also a railing inside where you can lie down, which is really nice.
The exhibition, designed to inspire creativity and wonder, invites guests to interact, play, and dream.
Well, that's all we have for you for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.